Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be exploring this really fascinating book
Okay.
called Thought Power. And it kind of delves into like all these connections
Hmm.
between spirituality and history and human potential. And
Right.
it's really interesting. Our source material for this one comes from Shri Suresh Kumar Makam.
Uh-huh.
And he is a disciple of the revered Shri Raghavendra Rao Sahib.
Interesting.
And someone who's, very much rooted in Indian spiritual tradition. So,
Yeah, that's it's always fascinating to see how these lineages of wisdom, connect to the broader story of human civilization
yeah.
and how um, these ancient traditions continue to shape our understanding of the world today.
Yeah, and I thought before we get too far into this,
Sure.
I wanted to just mention this disclaimer
Okay.
right at the beginning of the book. It
Mm.
says, cleanse your manas, mind, with practice of sadhana, and then go through literature.
Okay.
Otherwise, reality will be lost upon you.
Wow, that's a pretty strong statement. I mean, it seems to suggest that there's a certain level of inner preparation needed to
Yeah.
really grasp the concepts in this book.
Yeah.
It's almost like saying, without the proper mindset,
Right.
the true meaning could be missed.
Yeah. It definitely makes you stop and think
Yeah,
before diving in.
absolutely.
And speaking of diving in,
Yeah.
the book starts off with this concept of divine design, or sometimes he calls it godly design.
Mm.
And he uses the Sanskrit phrase Sakyam Shivam Sundaram, which basically translates to
Okay.
everything is truth, everything is bliss, everything is beautiful. And he sees that perfection reflected in every aspect of creation.
This idea of divine design is
Mhm.
something that you see in various cultures throughout history. You see it in different philosophical and theological traditions
Yeah.
where the universe is seen as like an expression of a higher intelligence
Right.
or a divine plan. And even in modern science, there's this sense of awe and wonder
Yeah.
at the intricate laws and processes that govern the cosmos.
And it's interesting how he connects this idea of divine design to the human form,
Mm.
specifically. He calls it the last and final design of the divine. And he even goes on to say that throughout history, science has been unable to find a single flaw in the
Wow.
perfection of creation.
That's a bold statement. It makes you wonder, what is the relationship between scientific inquiry
Yeah.
and spiritual understanding?
Yeah.
Is he suggesting that science ultimately points towards a divine creator, or is it more about just
Right.
recognizing the inherent beauty and order in the natural world?
And then here's where it takes a really interesting turn.
Yep.
He shares this story about Shri Babuji Maharaj, who was his spiritual master.
Okay.
And Babuji Maharaj believed that there were powerful spiritual forces residing in the Indian Ocean,
Mm.
and even suggested that these forces could be harnessed, manipulated,
Wow.
even new ones created if needed.
This idea of, subtle energies or spiritual forces influencing events is something you find in many traditions.
Yeah.
In Chinese philosophy, for example, there's the concept of qi,
Right.
this vital life force that flows through all things.
Right.
And in various mystical traditions, you find ideas about manipulating energy
Yeah.
for healing or even influencing events at a distance.
And he gives a really specific example
Oh,
of this. Shri Suresh claims that Shri Rao Sahib,
Hmm?
his teacher's guru, was involved in the 1971 Indo-Pak War
Wow.
and actually influenced the outcome through spiritual means.
That notion of spiritual warfare or subtle energies influencing conflict
Yeah.
is a really fascinating one. I mean,
Wow.
while there are these anecdotal accounts throughout history,
Right.
it's really hard to prove or disprove these kinds of claims empirically.
Yeah.
But it definitely raises some questions
Yeah.
about, the potential power of the human mind
Right.
and its
Yeah.
connection to larger forces.
Yeah. And one of the most intriguing anecdotes in this whole section is about the creation of this powerful entity called Mahakala
Hmm.
by Shri Babuji Maharaj. And he supposedly created Mahakala to absorb all the negative spiritual energies
Okay.
that were resulting from the war.
This concept of spiritual pollution and
Yeah.
the need for purification rituals
Right.
is something that is really prevalent across many cultures.
Yeah.
In Hinduism, you have these elaborate rituals
Yeah.
to cleanse negative karma.
Right.
In various indigenous traditions, you find ceremonies
Yeah.
to restore balance
Right.
to the land or to the community after a conflict.
And what's really fascinating is that Shri Babuji Maharaj later wanted to withdraw Mahakala,
Okay.
but his own guru, Sri Lalaji Maharaj, advised against it, saying that this powerful entity
Wow.
would be needed in the future.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's a really intriguing detail. I mean, it suggests this kind of cyclical view of history.
Yeah.
Where these challenges and conflicts recur.
Right.
And there's this ongoing need for these powerful forces to intervene and restore balance.
Yeah, it almost hints at this idea that actions taken in the spiritual realm
Right.
can have these long-lasting consequences
Yeah.
that maybe were even unintended.
Absolutely.
Now, shifting gears a bit,
Okay.
Shri Suresh talks about Shri Babuji Maharaj's global mission. He traveled extensively, empowering saints and spiritual seekers all over the world.
Wow.
And he also really emphasized this ancient Indian wisdom of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam,
Okay.
which means the whole world is one family.
That vision of interconnectedness and global unity, I mean, that really resonates with, a lot of the contemporary ideas about global citizenship and, this search for shared values.
Right.
It's a message that feels really relevant, in a world that can often feel really divided.
Yeah. And then Shri Suresh dives into this discussion of India's decline and resurgence.
Okay.
And he's really looking at it from this spiritual perspective.
Interesting. He
contrasts the India of 1945, which was post-World War II, pre-independence, with the India of today. And he sees just this huge transformation.
Right.
And he believes it's driven part by a spiritual awakening.
India's transformation over the past century is truly remarkable.
Yeah.
It's a story that encompasses, economic and social and political spheres.
Yeah.
So while he's focusing on this spiritual perspective, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are many factors that have contributed to this change.
Right.
You have to think about political leadership,
Right.
economic reforms,
Yeah.
social movements.
Yeah, he paints a pretty stark picture of India in 1945, talking about widespread poverty, social divisions, political turmoil.
And it's crucial to remember the historical context here. I mean, India in 1945 was emerging from centuries of colonial rule and facing the immense challenges of partition and rebuilding a nation. So it's really a testament to the resilience of the Indian people that they were able to overcome all of these obstacles.
Yeah, and he really attributes this progress to a resurgence of the spirit of India.
Okay.
This reawakening to its ancient wisdom and spiritual heritage.
Interesting.
And he sees it reflected in, India's growing global influence.
There's no doubt that India has taken on a much more prominent role on the global stage, both economically and politically.
Right.
The question of whether it's directly linked to a spiritual resurgence is a complex one, open to interpretation.
Right.
But it definitely highlights the interplay between cultural identity, national aspirations, and global influence.
Yeah. And then he goes on to talk about the cyclical nature of history.
Okay.
Talking about how saints and spiritual leaders emerge during times of darkness and conflict to guide humanity towards a better path.
This cyclical view of history is a theme that you see in so many traditions. You think about the concept of yugas in Hinduism, the rise and fall of empires in Western history, even modern theories about societal cycles.
Yeah.
It suggests this pattern of growth and decay and renewal that kind of plays out on this grand scale.
Yeah, he brings up examples like the aftermath of the Mahabharata War, which he describes in very vivid detail.
Okay.
And the emergence of Lord Buddha during a time of social upheaval and spiritual questioning.
These examples really highlight the role that individuals can play in shaping the course of history. While there are these larger forces at play, it's often the actions and teachings of these visionary figures that catalyze change and inspire these new ways of thinking and being.
And this leads to one of the central themes of the book, which is the power of thought. Suresh believes that thought is the driving force behind everything. Scientific progress, philosophical inquiry, societal development, even our individual destinies.
I mean, this idea of thought as a powerful force really connects with various philosophical and psychological perspectives. I mean, in cognitive psychology, for instance, you see how important thought patterns are in shaping our emotions and behaviors. And, in philosophical idealism, reality itself is seen as a construct of the mind.
And he goes so far as to say that thinking is a uniquely human capacity that sets us apart from the rest of creation.
Okay.
He says that, while animals might react instinctively, humans have the ability to reflect and analyze and create new possibilities through the power of their minds.
This question of what distinguishes human consciousness from that of other animals is one that's been debated for centuries.
Yeah.
Some argue for a clear dividing line. Others see more of a continuum of cognitive abilities.
Yeah.
But regardless of where you stand on that, there's no denying this extraordinary capacity that humans have for abstract thought and complex problem solving.
And then he connects this power of thought to the concept of time.
Okay.
He talks about these things called time capsules, which are basically bundles of energy and information that influence events.
Okay.
And suggests that human thought can interact with and even shape these time capsules.
That's a really interesting concept.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be interpreted metaphorically as, representing the historical and cultural forces that shape a moment in time.
Yeah.
But it also hints at this more mystical understanding of time. Where the past, present, and future are all intertwined and possibly even malleable.
He also goes into astrology and the role of celestial bodies in influencing human destiny.
Okay.
He analyzes these concepts and talks about the importance of almanacs and understanding the interplay between time, thought, and cosmic influences.
Right. Astrology has a long and fascinating history rooted in ancient Babylonian astronomy.
Right.
And while its scientific validity is often debated, it continues to hold cultural and symbolic significance for many people.
Yeah.
So, his exploration of these concepts really reflects this enduring fascination that we have with the cosmos and its potential influence on our lives.
And it's fascinating how he blends these ancient concepts with modern scientific understanding. He brings in things like atoms, cosmology, the impact of celestial events on life on Earth. It's this really intriguing weaving together of different perspectives.
That blend of scientific and spiritual perspectives is something that you see a lot in his work. And it reflects a broader trend of people seeking integration between different ways of knowing and understanding the world. It really highlights the limitations of any single perspective. And points towards the need for a more holistic approach.
So what does this all mean for us, the listeners? I think ultimately Shri, Suresh seems to be offering this message of hope and empowerment. He believes that humans have the capacity to transcend limitations that are imposed by time, circumstance, even astrological influences.
That's encouraging. It reminds us that we're not just passive recipients of fate, but we're active participants in shaping our own destinies. It aligns with, what some people might call a growth mindset, where challenges are seen as opportunities for learning and development, and where we actually have the power to create positive change.
And he points to examples of human ingenuity throughout history. The development of language, the invention of tools, the creation of art and music. And he sees all of these as testaments to this boundless potential of the human mind.
I think it's really inspiring to consider these achievements. It reminds us of what our species is capable of. And it's also kind of a call to action to harness our own creative potential to solve problems, to innovate, and to contribute to making things better.
And he sees this trend continuing. He talks about current scientific and technological advancements, artificial intelligence, space exploration, genetic engineering. And he sees all of these as further evidence of this drive to push beyond limits and explore new frontiers.
Those advancements raise a lot of questions about the nature of human progress and what it means for the future. I mean, they hold immense potential for solving global challenges, but they also come with ethical considerations that require a lot of thought and responsible stewardship.
He seems particularly fascinated by the idea of surpassing limitations. And he even questions whether the current scientific understanding of time is even complete. Suggesting there might be these deeper levels of reality beyond what we can currently perceive or measure.
That questioning of established paradigms is essential to scientific and intellectual progress.
Right.
Throughout history, major breakthroughs have often come from challenging conventional wisdom and exploring new ways of thinking. So his speculations about the nature of time, I think, really reflect this spirit of inquiry and this ongoing quest to expand our understanding.
Yeah, it's fascinating how he blends ancient wisdom with modern science.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying that whether it's through spiritual practices or scientific breakthroughs, humans are constantly striving to push beyond those perceived limits.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings us to his perspective on human ingenuity in the future.
Right.
He sees this direct link between our ability to think, to imagine, and our drive to create and innovate.
He uses examples like the development of language and the invention of tools as evidence of this innate human capacity to transcend limitations.
Yeah.
And he even goes so far as to question whether our current scientific understanding of time is even complete, suggesting that there might be these deeper levels of reality beyond what we can currently perceive or measure.
And that connects back to that earlier discussion about the time capsules. And this idea that thought can interact with and even shape these bundles of energy and information. So it really challenges us to consider the possibility that our minds might have a more profound impact on reality than we realize.
And he doesn't just focus on the past either. He's also really excited about current scientific and technological advancements. Things like artificial intelligence, space exploration, genetic engineering.
He sees these as further proof of humanity's desire to explore new frontiers and push the boundaries of what's possible.
It's almost like he's saying that the limitations that we perceive are in a sense self-imposed, that if we can shift our thinking, expand our consciousness, then we can tap into this realm of limitless possibilities.
And he uses this beautiful analogy to illustrate this concept, the analogy of a seed. He says that within a tiny seed lies the potential for a mighty tree. But that potential can only be realized if the right conditions are met. Things like sunlight, water, fertile soil, in a similar way. He suggests that within each of us lies the potential for greatness. But we need to cultivate the right inner environment for that potential to blossom.
So to bring it all back to you, the listener, what can we take away from this deep dive into thought power?
It seems like he's ultimately offering a message of hope and empowerment. This belief that by understanding the power of thought, by connecting to a deeper source of wisdom and guidance, we can truly shape our destinies and contribute to a better world.
He leaves us with this really powerful question to consider. And it is, how are your thoughts shaping the world around you?
It's a call to action to become more aware of our thought patterns and how they influence our actions, our relationships, even the larger systems that we're all a part of. He's asking us to recognize this incredible power that we hold within our own mind and to use that power consciously and intentionally to create the world that we want to see.
Yeah, that's a perfect note to end on. A reminder that we all have the potential to shape not only our own lives, but the world around us through the power of our thoughts. I love it. Yeah, it's almost like, he's saying that those limitations are self-imposed. If we can shift our thinking, expand our consciousness, then we can tap into this realm of limitless possibilities.
And he uses this beautiful analogy to illustrate this concept, the analogy of a seed. And he says, within that tiny seed lies the potential for this mighty tree. But that potential can only be realized if the right conditions are met. Things like sunlight, water, fertile soil. And in a similar way, he suggests that within each of us lies this potential for greatness. But we need to cultivate that right inner environment, that potential to blossom.
So to bring it all back to you, the listener, what can we take away from this deep dive into thought power? I think ultimately what he's offering is a message of hope.
An empowerment. This belief that by understanding the power of thought,
Right.
And connecting to this deeper source of wisdom and guidance, we can really shape our own destinies.
Right.
And contribute to a better world.
He leaves us with a really powerful question to consider.
Yeah.
How are your thoughts shaping the world around you?
It's a call to action.
Right.
Become more aware of our thought patterns,
Yeah.
how those influence our actions, our relationships, even the larger systems that we're a part of.
Right.
He's asking us to recognize this incredible power that we hold within our own minds and to use that power consciously and intentionally to create the world that we want to see.
That's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
This reminder that we all have that potential
Absolutely.
to shape not only our own lives, but the world around us through the power of our thoughts.
Absolutely. I love it. Yeah, and it's not just about individual potential either,
Right.
He also talks about the role of grace, of connecting to a higher power as a key factor in unlocking our full potential.
It adds a whole other layer of depth to the conversation. It really speaks to that human longing for meaning and purpose, this idea that there are these forces beyond ourselves that can guide and support us on this journey. And he really sees saints and spiritual masters as playing this role of guides, helping us navigate the complexities of life and connect to this deeper source of wisdom.
I mean, that idea of mentorship and guidance is something you see throughout pretty much every spiritual tradition. It really emphasizes the importance of learning from those who've kind of traveled the path before us, who can offer those insights based on their own experiences.
So to wrap up our deep dive into thought power, it seems like Shri Suresh is presenting this vision of humanity as capable of really incredible things. He believes that we can transcend those limitations, shape our own destinies, and contribute to making a better world.
It's a really hopeful and inspiring message, especially, in a world that can often feel so full of challenges and uncertainty. I think it reminds us of that power that we hold within ourselves, the power to create positive change, both individually and collectively.
He leaves us with this really powerful question, one that really makes you stop and think.
Okay.
How are your thoughts shaping the world around you?
It's a call to become more aware of those thought patterns and how they influence our actions, our relationships, even those larger systems that we're all a part of. It's a reminder that we have this incredible power in our minds and we can use it consciously and intentionally to create the world that we want to see.
That's a great place to wrap up, I think.
Yeah.
It's just this reminder that we all have the potential to shape not only our own lives, but the world around us. And it all starts with our thoughts.
Absolutely. I love that message.
Me too. Yeah.